Hi, I'm Garmbreak1, and this is Midgardia's Cool Crowdfunding Show. I'm here today with Spencer Campbell. How's it going?
It's going really well. How about you?
I'm doing quite well. So, you're here today to talk about Nova, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So Nova is my latest RPG that is up on Kickstarter right now. It is a kind of action-packed but rules-light role-playing game about badass exosuits on a post-apocalyptic Earth. Basically, the sun exploded, which is no good for us. It wipes out most of humanity, but these huge shards of sunlight get stuck into the earth and we start to rebuild around it. And with that, we get access to this very cool new technology. So the game revolves around you being these mechs, essentially, that go out into the dark to try and fight off the threats from beyond and recover some of old Earth's old tech and information to try and rebuild.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so sort of a like the antithesis of solar punk almost.
Yeah, yeah, it really is because the sun is straight up dead. It's gone.
Nice. Yeah, so you got like giant jagged chunks of like crystal star, slammed into everything. I like that.
Yeah, we got to do a lot of like hand waviness with the science of it. Like we don't think too much about what's going on with like the sun being gone and sun being in the earth. It's cool sci-fi.
Listen, the sun is really big. Everything is theoretical because we can't actually go inside it. Maybe there's a giant crystal lattice core.
Could have happened. It
Could have
could
happened.
happen.
It could happen. It's speculative fiction.
Exactly.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the like core mechanics of Nova?
So Nova runs off of the Lumen system, which is a system that I recently released about, I don't know, maybe like 2 months ago or something like that. It's in an SRD form. Lumen is the evolved version of Light, which was a game that I released at the end of last year. That's my love letter to Destiny. It's basically focused on very rules light approach to doing combat specifically, like because Light is a love letter to Destiny. That's all about combat, but I don't really dig the whole like tactical grids and measuring everything out. So for me, combat needs to be fast, powerful, and narrative. And that's what Lumen is designed to do. So Nova kind of takes some of the stuff that I learned from Light, turned it into a codified system with Lumen, and now it's all about this like very fast paced, very like high octane action and lethal combat, but lethal for your enemies. Your characters are incredibly powerful. And I always talk about how Nova and Lumen games are a power fantasy game. They are a power fantasy. You are incredibly cool robots, and you're gonna feel cool being those robots,
God, I wish I was a cool robot.
right?
So you've referred to them as mechs and robots. How big is your average spark?
Yeah, so these sparks, they're a little bit bigger than humans. They're human piloted, so they're not the like mecha, like the huge giant mecha size things that some folks might imagine when you hear the word mech. This is much more of what I think of as like an exosuit. So it's something that you can kind of climb into, and it wraps itself around you as sort of like a second, like a suit of armor, kind of like a knight in armor, but it's instead of being like plate mail, it's extremely high tech metal and fire swords and everything like that.
As human technology inevitably comes to, yeah.
Which is what I assume we would immediately start building when we once there's a huge chunk of sun in our backyard. We're like, well, we got to start really leaning into this fire stuff, I guess.
Sun's fucked. There's no more ethics boards. Fire sword it is.
Everybody gets a fire sword.
We solved global warming. Carbon emissions don't matter because the sun's gone.
See, problem solved. I'm here to solve problems.
Spencer Campbell's solution for climate change:
Blow up the sun.
blow up the sun.
It's what I've been shouting on Twitter for the last couple days. Is dead, blow it up, we killed it. And if you don't know who I am, or if you don't know what Nova is, I truly sound like a conspiracy theorist to the extreme degree.
You're gonna end up on one of those YouTube channels that goes into weird Twitter accounts.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, this guy is really anti-sun.
Today we delve into the dark mysteries of Dr. Spencer Campbell.
Who would give this man a degree? So yeah, that's Nova for you.
I'm dying. So the art's really cool.
The art is really, really cool. So there's a couple of pieces up on the Kickstarter page that you can see right now of there's a few things that you can see. You can see some of the sparks themselves. So you can see the characters that you would play. And then there's also the cover art that is being shown off as well. And all of that stuff is by Eddie York. He's an artist out of the UK who was recommended to me. He's just like an incredibly awesome artist to work with. He was a scientist in his life prior to getting into kind of full-time commissioned art, and so he loves robots, he loves sci-fi and stuff like that. So he's like he and I are having just so much fun talking about ideas for sparks and what they might look like. So it's been really, really cool working with Eddie. And then on top of that, you can also see some of the interior, the layout that Jam is doing. And she's got this really very cool style set up for Nova, both in the spreads of like what the rule book will look like. And then she's also got a sample character sheet up on the Kickstarter page as well. I'm like having those two on the book is going to make it look so good.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that there's like 3 classes of sparks. Can you tell me a
Mm.
little bit about them?
Yeah, so in the final book, there's going to be 8 of them. We've got 2 laid out on the Kickstarter page right now. The 2 that are currently getting their art developed, those can also be found in the Quick Start. So there's a free Quick Start available on Kickstarter for anybody who wants to check it out. There's the Voyager, which is sort of a kind of a scouty pathfinder sort of spark, and their whole thing is about marking enemies, which lets them do a whole bunch of stuff on their own, but also let your allies just lay waste to people who are marked. And then you've got your big bruiser tank called the Warden that's also being developed. And so those are the ones that are in the Kickstarter, are in the Quick Start right now. Then there's 4 more that are being currently developed. There was going to be 6 in the book, but we hit our one stretch goal, which unlocked 2 more sparks. So I'm in the process of now creating the forbidden science sparks, which are revolving around the ideas of plague and necromancy, which is going to be really, really fun to make. So I'm in the other ones are sort of still in their like early development or brewing stages right now. But yeah, ultimately it's going to be 8 of them in the book.
It is a tragedy that that it's too soon to call the plague one the most obvious name, given the sun and the plague, and yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I'll have to figure out what a cool name for both of them. As I was talking about these sparks, like I said, working with Eddie is very fun because he does. He then immediately starts researching this, and he sends me back a link, and he says, "Hey, just so you know, zombie stars are a real thing." And so he sends me this article, and unfortunately, they all have extremely scientific names. We were hoping that we could just like grab one of these cool zombie star names out there, but the premise is sound and the science is out there. Now I don't feel so bad about having some sort of star fueled necromancer spark in my game.
Yeah, naming things after stars is harder than you'd expect.
Yeah.
My cats, their mother's name is Vega, and I was gonna name the rest of them after stars, but yeah, I don't, I can't name them all like Gleis 258c, you know?
Right,
Or
exactly.
258c is the planet, Gleis 258. So they're all named after astronomers instead, or
Nice. I dig that.
astrophysicists, one of the two. I don't remember. um, so what can you tell me about the sun, moon, and shade stuff?
Yeah, so Lumen Games work off of a concept where rather than having a list of skills that you have access to or that you're proficient in, we assume that your characters are just very capable of doing pretty much anything. Because again, Lumen Games are kind of focused on being power fantasies. So rather than determining a list of what you can do, it's more determining or describing how you are approaching something. So these are called attributes or approaches, and in Lumen games, there's usually 3 of them. Um, I won't say universally because I know there are Lumen games that are not doing it the way that I'm about to describe, but usually it is like a strong, forceful approach, a very quick or reactive approach, or a slow, methodical approach. And so, how you are doing things determines which of those approaches that you're using, and that it creates a d6 dice pool to determine how your actions resolve. So in Nova, I've renamed those things Sun for powerful stuff, Moon for quick moving stuff, and Shade for the practice methodical approach to doing things.
Red, and I like that both combat and non-combat uses are spelled out for all three of them.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you're out in exploring, Sun, Moon, Shade are going to be your things. If you're in combat, you're using your powers, or if you want to do something that's not one of your powers, Sun, Moon, Shade are going to help you to describe it. Again, I'm all focused on like creating fast, rules light, very quick and approachable game rather than consult the list of 20 possible skills and see which ones you are good at. You're good at everything. You're a really cool robot.
I am trained in Arcana and History.
Right.
All history, all of it. So before we get into stretch goals, I do want to touch on one thing that I think is both. I want to say hilarious because that makes it sound like I'm making fun of it, but really cool. The if we fund before the solar eclipse thing,
Mhm.
which sadly, as of the time of this interview, that's dealt with because I think that's today.
Yeah, that was this morning, I
Oh yeah,
think.
I was asleep. It doesn't matter.
Me too. It was at like 5 o'clock in the morning. There's no way I was going to be awake for that.
Oh man, yeah, no, screw that. Once in every couple of decades thing, whatever. I gotta get some
Eh.
sleep. I have an interview at 11 a.m. But yes, do you want to talk a little bit about the strike for light that was funded?
Yeah, so I was just on Twitter. I was honestly just having fun coming up with ridiculous like backer tiers or stretch goals that weren't going to exist. And one of them was, I think for like $5,000, I'll fly to your house the next time there's a solar eclipse and play Nova with you. And then somebody pointed out, hey, just so you know, there's a solar eclipse 2 days after Nova launches. And so I didn't know that. And so realizing that in the Discord, we were kind of brainstorming like, what could we do? What would be a fun event to do? And so I came up with this idea of running or creating a strike for Light, my original Lumen game, that is about literally the apocalypse of the Light universe. Like something is wrong with the sun, and it's the final moments before everything goes wrong. And so the strike itself is going to be written and released for free to everybody who's a backer because we hit our funding goal before the solar eclipse began, and I think we're going to be playing it on a stream sometime soon. But it's going to be really cool, and as I won't say officially, but sort of like implies a connection between the timelines or the universes of Light and Nova, which is one of those things that as more people are releasing Lumen games, we're putting little homages or references from each other's games into our games, which is implying that there's like a Lumen cinematic universe going on. So it's been very fun kind of figuring out how it all weaves together.
I was gonna try and work weaves together into the next thing I said, leading to like a loom pun, but you beat me to it. You scoundrel. Yeah, so like if you're playing light right now and you're like, oh man, Nova looks really cool, you could theoretically run this and then, you know, things get weird after that.
Yeah, exactly. The whole strike is going to be about what do the beacons do in their final moments to try and ensure that humanity will have a chance at surviving the apocalypse. And so, if you play this strike, you could use some of the outcomes of that or the decisions that you make in terms of doing some world building for your Nova setting, where the people are around or the tech that's around or whatever that is around is a result of the beacon sacrifice during the Go Nova strike.
Man, that rules.
I'm pretty happy with it.
All because somebody realized there was a solar eclipse happening during the campaign.
Yeah, I think Ty is the one that pointed that out to me, and I'm so glad that he did because it inspired, like, oh, okay, we actually got to do something real quick and cool about this.
That's great. And on the topic of like real world events influencing the development of Nova, this is sort of the second iteration of this project. Do you want to talk about the first one?
Yeah, so like I said, Light is the original Lumen game, but it wasn't called Lumen at the time. It was just Light on its own, and it's a love letter to Destiny. So I wanted to write another love letter game, and I did. It was called Frame, which was a love letter to Warframe. I launched it in March on Kickstarter, and a small, incredibly angry vocal group from the Warframe fandom was very upset about the existence of the project. Sort of began a very uh, targeted harassment campaign against me and a lot of people close to the project. And I canceled the project like I think 3 hours after launching or something like that. Didn't make it a day because I realized it was so bad after just 3 hours. I couldn't imagine going 3 weeks with it. So I canceled Frame, and what I did after like taking a good week off uh, was I stripped away all of the setting stuff and I said, well, the rules here are cool. What can I do with this? And I created the Lumen SRD as a result. So Lumen as a system is sort of informed by everything that I learned from Light and Frame and turned into a genreless system that anybody could use for their own love letters to video games or action media or power fantasies or anything like that. And so I then I had this toolkit that I had written out. I wanted to use it. And so that's where then I got the idea of all right, well, what would my Lumen game look like? What can I do with this? And that evolved itself into Nova and what it is eventually. After like a lot of iterating on settings and ideas and things like that, I landed on this sort of post-apocalyptic sun exploding scenario from a setting that my best friend and I developed a few years ago. Kind of taking an idea that we had a lot of fun brainstorming and then didn't use, and I said I think I've got the system that's going to work for this. And so yeah, I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, and there's like that cool kind of meta narrative thing going on where it's a burnt out apocalyptic hellscape after like hellfire rained down on the environment, and that works in with the whole flaming.
Yeah, well, we'll say that was very intentional that I that I was thinking about all of that.
Big brain. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it all works out whether you meant it to or not, right?
Exactly. It's truly one of those things where like, it sucked when the whole Frame fiasco was happening, but it was one of those things that has created a cooler thing, not only because I think Nova is just honestly a cooler project, but because I got to create Lumen, which is fun for me, but it's also really fun watching lots of people make stuff with Lumen, and everybody's doing something really different and unique with it. So it's one of those things that, yeah, it sucked, but from the ashes came something much, much cooler.
Which is basically the entire ethos of Nova.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Maybe I'll make a Harvest Moon hack of Lumen. We'll see.
That'd be pretty cool.
Or Rune Factory. I guess that would be a little bit closer.
Yeah, I think you could lumen anything. There are people who are truly taking it in directions that I never thought the system would work for. So it's very, very cool.
There's an obscure LucasArts game that would be great for Lumen, called Loom.
Maybe.
Ah. I think I actually have that on floppy disk somewhere around here.
Boot it up. Start taking notes.
Hell yeah, I don't have a floppy disk drive. I've got both
Yeah,
the
that's gonna be your first problem.
yeah. There's like 20 computer carcasses downstairs I could loot. We'll see. I'll think about it.
Perfect.
I think it's actually available on Steam nowadays.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
I guess that solves that problem.
It's a little easier, yeah. It's the CD version that actually comes with music too.
Mm.
Yeah, the floppy version didn't, unfortunately.
You had to make your own soundtrack.
Yeah, beep boop, beep boop. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about the stretch goals for Nova?
Yeah, so there's one stretch goal, and we have hit it. The stretch goal was the Forbidden Science stretch goal, which adds 2 new sparks to the book, so we'll be at 8 sparks all day. And the forbidden science sparks are ones that are inspired by maybe roots that we shouldn't have been researching when we were making our sparks, but we did it anyway. And so one of them is a kind of plague based class, and then the other one is a necromancy class as well. And so those are going to be the two new things. And I think that's going to be it for stretch goals. We've got, I think, a little over 3 weeks still in the campaign. So there's still like a lot of time. But I've also, I just, from my own personal experience running my own Kickstarters and seeing some other Kickstarters, I know that adding a bunch of stretch goals can create delays and content bloat and all sorts of things like that. And for now, Nova's pretty awesome as is. So unless somehow I get some attention that pulls in $100,000 or something, and then I'll figure out a cool second stretch goal. But for now, I think the book is pretty awesome as is, and this gives me the opportunity to um, increase the pay rate for the really spectacular team that's on the project.
Can I suggest a stretch goal, Spencer?
Sure, what's that stretch goal?
Imagine the really cool Nova cover, but like the kind of reflective material foil.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is something that Eddie and I have talked about, is that sort of UV spotting going on where I think the red would stay like matte and then the black would be that shiny reflective material, and it would look really, really good.
I was thinking the other way around, but that's actually way better.
I think that's the direction we came up with. I'd
I
have
mean,
to eventually talk to him about it, but yeah, that would be so I think that would be, if I did do more stretch goals, at least me 3 days in, 2 days in saying this, I think they would be primarily in that realm of like increasing the quality of the book or the visual components of the book, rather than being like, okay, well, I'm going to write a 10-page adventure now, or I'm going to source in a whole bunch of other stuff. You know, let's just make the book as really awesome as we can.
yeah. Get Spencer to 1 million so we can get that cool UV
Yeah.
spotting. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do that.
I can't believe that we finally found, like, I finally got a book that might replace Slayers on my shelf because of how cool it looks, and it's another friggin' Spencer Campbell book.
I gotta stay up there. I gotta be ever present. I'm always there, looming over your shoulder, watching through my books.
Like we've said loom more time in this interview than I do most
Yeah,
months.
that's strange.
I have the sudden urge to go make fabric. Well, Spencer, is there anything else you'd like to bring up while you're here?
I think that's mostly it. The Kickstarter's still going. It's going until July 3rd, so there's still plenty of time. I had originally only made the hardcover version of the book a limited run, but the hardcover backers were extremely supportive of the idea of expanding that out, making it available to anybody. So I'm very thankful to those first 100 folks who were like, "Yeah, go ahead, let's do it. Let's make it. If anybody wants a hardcover, let's let them have it." So that's a tier now. If you missed out on the first run, that's an option for you. Yeah, we go until July 3rd. We're gonna try and do some fun streams or ideas between now and then, because there's still like 3 weeks to go. Um, and then on top of that, if the Lumen system is interesting to you, there's an event going on called the Lux Collective starting this month through August. People who are making Lumen games and are trying to itch fund them, so crowdsourcing them through itch.io. There's a cool collection of games that are going up there. And so if you're interested in learning more about Lumen stuff, look up the Lux Collective. That'll be a cool way for you to learn a lot about the system.
And that's LUX, right?
Yes, LUX.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're all really leaning into this light stuff.
Look, man, you find a thing and you stick to it.
You just hold on to it.
Grasp it firmly.
Exactly.
Which is a weird thing to say about light, given that,
But maybe in the Nova universe you can. Maybe I'm going to just start making hard light stuff.
Man, I love hard light. Like, it's one of the
cool.
best sci-fi things.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for that. Shout out to Mass Effect's Omniblade. Or Omni Tool, rather.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be a good Lumen one as well. Dang it.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think yeah, there's I mean there's you could do it with anything. That's the coolest thing about it.
Yeah. Well, anything else you'd like to bring up while you're here?
I think that's it. The easiest way to keep up with my stuff is on Twitter. So if you follow me at Gila RPGs, you'll be able to get my uh, almost hourly tweets where I scream about the sun being dead. So that's a really good thing for you. You you definitely want that in your life. Otherwise, that has the access to my link tree. So if you want to find any of my stuff online, following me on Twitter is the best place to do that. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who supported the Kickstarter so far. We funded on day one, and it's been going great. So I'm very thankful for that.
Spencer, I have one last question for you.
Hit me.
This is the third-ish time that I've interviewed you, and I've always wondered why Gila RPGs?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it is it's a reference to my original AOL screen name. So when we got 56K dial up in my house, uh, we were coming up with our names for things, and as a kid, I was like, I want to be Spider Man, and of course, somebody already has the name Spider Man, and so it'd be like Spider Man 15632, and I'm so thankful. My dad at the time was like, "You want something that is unique, that you don't have numbers." And so we had been in school learning about Gila monsters, and uh, so I said, "Okay, well, there's Spider Man. I'll be Gila Boy." So that's my original AOL name. So Gila or Gila Boy, which has then been adopted into Gila RPG. So that's the origin story of the name.
Excellent. I assumed it was something to do with Gila monsters, but I wasn't quite sure. Maybe
Yeah,
it's an acronym.
it was just my desire to still be kind of like Spider-Man, but with my own unique name. Because you better believe nobody else had claimed the name Gila Boy online.
Weird.
So that's me.
And what kind of loser would have a number at the end of their name? Anyway, Spencer, it's been wonderful talking to you. I'm Garnbreak1. Go back to Kickstarter. There is a link below. Spencer is a wonderful guy and one of my favorite people to talk to, and not just because he always says yes when I ask.
Always.
Oh, all right. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.